Well, Bernie Sanders turned out to be a big phony, and he's not. I still support his ideas, and he's good at diagnosing the problem of, but he's also he's a sheepdog for a pro-war, anti-worker party, and he's a liar. He look what he did to RFK when he was trying to get confirmed. Look how he supported the Ukraine war. I mean, he knows that's garbage. I mean, but yeah. So he's not good on lots of things. And when he got cheated in 2016, he had a real movement. He used to start every speech by saying, "Sounds like you're ready for a revolution," and people would go crazy. Well, he stopped saying that. Right, he stopped saying that, and then he extracted nothing for his. He disbanded his movement. He had a real movement, and he could have, extracted concessions from the Democrats, from Hillary Clinton for his support. He extracted nothing. They cheated him. He knew they cheated him. Everybody who supported him knew he got cheated. Elizabeth Warren said that it was a rigged primary. Donna Brazile, who was the DNC chair, said it was a rigged primary in her book. And then everybody said, oh, no, it wasn't. So, and then he didn't do anything. He didn't extract. He just went, go ahead. Now you got to support all those things I was running against. A warmonger who's in bed with the military-industrial complex and Wall Street. Hillary Clinton. She has a private position and a public position. Now we're supposed to go, like, no, you're supposed to be breathing fire down their neck. You're supposed to tell them they can't get elected without your movement, which they couldn't. And he just was like, no, I'm not. I didn't. And he did the same thing in 2020. And then, he Russiagated, and which I know he knows is garbage because they Russiagated him. So it's whoever is a threat to the system. Like, you don't have to be a Donald Trump fan to be upset about the intelligence community doing Russiagate. Because if that's what they'll do, they did it to Bernie Sanders. As soon as he started winning primaries, headlines: Putin supports Bernie Sanders. Russia's social media bots supporting Bernie, and they were doing it to him, and he knew it. And then he goes right along with it. So Bernie Sanders, and then for him to say vote for Joe, my good friend Joe, and he's just there to give the illusion that there's somebody fighting for you. Chris Hedges I think he made the point. If not, I'll make it, that, we'd be better off if there wasn't people like Bernie Sanders or Elizabeth Warren or AOC or any of those people in the squad elected to government, because then people would get the idea like, oh, yeah, they're not coming to help. They're not helping us.
One of the things that is so interesting about the moment we're in with all of this is, like, the whole terms like left versus right came out of the French Revolution. It was like, oh, if you were on the left, you were like the Jacobins and like the anti-monarchists, and if you were on the right, you were sort of with the aristocracy and the monarchy. But today, it's sort of like the Trump team would be the left. Like, they're the closest thing to an insurgent that's trying to take on the entrenched interests. And what we've called the left seem to be in favor of all the things that that Walmart does on Twitter. It's like there's all the same. So has the left and right just completely reversed, or is left and right just stupid and doesn't even make any sense in our politics now to even think in terms of left and right?
I think it's confusing to try to think in terms of left and right. Just like I laid out at the beginning of this show, was that the things that the left is supposed to be traditionally about, they're not, right? And the Democratic Party is now beholden to Wall Street. And as my friend Russell Dobular says, if you're a left party that's in bed with Wall Street, there's no point to you, which is why they have to push identity politics, because that's all they have left. And identity politics doesn't come from the bottom up. It comes from the top down. And why? As Christian Parenti explained to me on my show, son of Michael Parenti, they've been doing this since World War II. It's the NGOs like the Ford Foundation, the Rockefeller Foundation, work hand in hand with the deep state to make sure that social movements don't have an economic component to them, right? So so that's why they push identity politics. That's why the deep state pushed feminism. Yeah. What's her name? The big feminist. Now I'm blanking on her name. Doesn't matter.
Jane Fonda.
No,
so I guess she's
Gloria Steinem.
Oh, right.
Said she was at CIA, and so that's the game. The game is that that's when did they kill Martin Luther King? Not when he was desegregating lunch counters because that makes everybody money. And but it was when he was doing a poor people's march, when he turned against the Vietnam War, and he wasn't doing a poor black people's march. He was doing a poor people's march. Same thing with Malcolm X when he realized that it wasn't a black white thing. That's when they got rid of him. So that's what it's always those. That's where identity politics comes from. They want you to identify with your sexuality. They want the most important thing about you to be your skin color or your ethnicity or your race. And that's a mistake. And that's there to make sure people don't come together and divide people. And it comes from people like BlackRock. There's videos I've showed of Larry Fink saying we have to force DEI on corporations. We have to force it on them, and that's coming from the top down. And that's to keep the workers divided, and so they don't come together So it's not. You're right. It's not left right. It's the top down. It's us against them. It's workers against the oligarchs. And that's what I say at the end of my show, my stand-up show. You know, it isn't left right anymore because people can't tell me what left right means anymore. You know, so you got RFK Jr. in there going after corruption in the FDA and the CDC and going to clean up the food supplies, go after big agra. You got Trump and stopping a war and wanting to make friends with Russia and China and floating the idea of cutting our military by 50%.
That was the biggest overlooked statement in the past several weeks. It was sort of shocking that this was said
by the president
in the Oval Office.
That sounds like something that you would think Bernie Sanders would say. Of course, he would never say it because he's also afraid of the military-industrial complex and the deep state, and he does their bidding. And so, but there it is. And so that's why, it does. So, RFK said that there's been, he knows more about this than me, but there's been 4 different political realignments in our nation's history politically. He said we're in the middle of one. And there's certainly something's happening. Glenn Greenwald talks about a realignment and that, and then the people who don't see it are the dumbest people around. And I'm like, well, I do see that, Donald... when you see how hard the establishment was against Donald Trump and how hard the establishment was against Tulsi Gabbard and how hard they were against Kash Patel and how hard they were in unison. Never Trumper Republicans and all the Democrats and the media. And they're against RFK. They're like, oh, well, how could you? There's got to be something good about them, at the very least. If it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend, right? So,
especially when it's such a diverse group, it's not like it's an ideological monoculture in that group. You're talking about a wide range of views in just the people you just listed.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, so that's my message. My message is it's not left right anymore. It's us against them. It's populists against the oligarchy. And Trump is, there's, again, a lot of things I disagree with him on, and I hope he doesn't cut Medicare. I hope his cuts to Medicaid make sense, and they don't take a meat cleaver to it, as Steve Bannon said. And, I hope he lives up to his promises about protecting Medicare and Social Security and, not taxing Social Security. All those things, he's not going to tax tipped wages. He's not going to tax overtime. He's going to protect Social Security. He sounds like a progressive lefty a lot of times, Joe Biden, remember Joe Biden ran on the public option and then they never brought it up again. That was it.
It was actually really shocking to me that healthcare, the healthcare system, played no role in our politics in the aftermath of a pandemic that basically introduced communist totalitarianism in America.
Yeah.
And it was not talked about until the CEO of United Healthcare got shot.
That's right.
And only briefly, except in
and then you're not supposed to, shouldn't be celebrating this. I'm like, oh, I already bought a float. But
I'm not saying I supported that, but it is interesting that did bring the conversation in. It's actually it's tragic that that's what it took to bring the conversation even temporarily back.
It was very temporary. It's over. I don't know how people could be against a public option. I'm like, okay, because
we can go next time you come in and we have more time. We can go longer on that.
Public option is that you get to decide if you want to buy into Medicare. You get to decide, and then We'll let
Yeah.
people decide. How could you be against that? You're a libertarian, right? You got people get choice. So
It's called the ratchet effect. It's you know, each
Yeah.
edition gets locked into place, and then the next one gets locked into place. It's like it's how the deep state got to be what it is, right? When I first came into this world of like thinking about politics in a big way, it was through Ron Paul. And specifically, I remember the moment he was on stage at it was like the 2007 primaries. And he talked about 9/11 and how it was CIA blowback for our role overseas. And Rudy Giuliani was like, "How dare you?" and came at him really hard.
Yeah.
And up until that point, I was more or less, like a relatively uneducated, like conservative Republican. Like it just was like, but there was something about that moment that struck and opened up a door to the possibility that everything I'd been told about our role, especially after the fall of the Berlin Wall, has been not what I've been told.
Yeah.
And I think that's the area where I've like found your show to be the most like enriching. Like you explode what's going on the international stage. How do you know how do you have confidence in what you're reading about? That's my biggest question for you, because we don't have time to go into all the details, and I encourage everyone to like go subscribe to your channel, because it's like you're like a great source for everything happening on the warfare state front. But how do you know that?
I just have a good bullshit detector. Like I knew immediately that Russiagate wasn't right. Like, and I brought on Bill Binney, and the big thing was that they said Russia had hacked into the DNC server, and I'm like, well, wait, the FBI didn't inspect the server. They gave it to CrowdStrike, which is that I'm like, when has the FBI ever farmed out an investigation about something this important? That's not so. Right away, my spidey senses, right? And then I brought on Bill Binney, who's the top code breaker for the NSA, and the FBI tried to entrap him, and he's so smart he outsmarted them. And he came on and he said, no, if this was hacked by the Russians, there would be evidence of it. They can't hide it, and it's not there. If that evidence existed, they would show it to us. And he said the reason why they're not showing it to us is because it doesn't exist. And he said that he looked it up anyway. So I knew it. So then I got that. And so then once you get that, you're like, oh, so then you just see it through a different lens, everything like, oh, you see where they're lying about all of it, right? And how it's all made up. The FBI lied to the FISA court 17 times so they could get a tap on Donald Trump's phone, so they could get some dirt on him to impeach him. And nobody knows that. Nobody knows that they did that. And that if they can do that to Donald Trump, they can do that to anybody who's a threat to the establishment. So somebody in the establishment sees him as a threat. So that's, and then like with the Syrian gas attacks, right? So I'm like, this doesn't make sense. At the time, Assad was winning the war. And why would he use gas? The one thing that Barack Obama said, if he did that, we'd have to. And so, of course, there was a false flag. And it was obvious the reporters it wasn't easy. It wasn't hard. Once you realize that they're lying, that's my jumping off point, is that the government is lying. Now I just have to figure out where. And then it becomes obvious very quickly, often, where they're lying.
If you like this clip, you should check out the full video and all the other great content we've got at Dad Saves America. So be sure to hit the like button, subscribe, and ring that bell so you won't miss our new stuff as it drops each week.